It's my pleasure to introduce Anthony Perez, whose presentation is entitled Maxing Out and Getting Personal. Thank you.
Thank you. So my name is Anthony Perez. I'm the Executive Vice President of Strategy for the Magic. And I want to talk to you about a couple of things today. We're going to sort of go on a little journey, a sampling of a variety of things that the Magic have been doing over the past few years. The main premise being that we are exceeding expectations in ticket sales given our current conditions. And I'm going to talk through how we're making that assessment and talk to you about specifically some of the things that we're doing to exceed those expectations. I want to start with a little framing, though. So if you think about a typical consumer product, we'll talk about Tide. Been selling for 70 years. Everybody knows what you can expect from Tide. It's very consistent in its performance. There's not down years where Tide is not as good at getting stains out of your clothes. And to the extent that Tide has changed over time, it's been to improve the product. And it's so, again, the performance very consistent. You sort of look at that compared to sports, and it's very different. The cycle of sports, there's ups, there's downs, the window's open, the window's closed. We've certainly lived that ourselves. In 2009, we were in the NBA Finals. In 2013, we were in the NBA Draft Lottery. And so you have to sort of deal with unexpected performance from your product that, from the business perspective, we don't really have a lot of control over that. We're sort of in a valley right now. If you look at the last 4 completed seasons, we've won the second fewest games of any team in the NBA. So how should that translate into business results? Largely thinking about ticket sales. We want fans to pay for tickets to come and see our team. And so what should we expect in a situation where we're not winning very much? We started to look at whether we could estimate that, and it turns out you can with a pretty good degree of accuracy. So if you look at the last 4 years of completed seasons and you look at the ticket revenue generated by every team in the NBA, you can get a fairly good estimate using these 4 factors. How many games did the team win over that time period? How many seasons do they have in the playoffs? How many seasons do they have an all-star on their roster? And how big is their market? We used a pretty simple linear regression model, adjusted R-squared to 0.7, so it's pretty solid in terms of predicting that variability in ticket revenue across the different teams. And when you do that and you estimate what you should expect from every team, the Magic would rank 28th based on that expectation, which I think makes sense given what we talked about. We haven't won a lot. We haven't been in the playoffs in that 4-year span. We haven't had an all-star on our roster. We're one of the smaller markets in the NBA, middle of the pack, maybe a little bit closer to the bottom 10. How we've actually performed over that time period, we're 18th in actual ticket revenue in the NBA. So we have overperformed that expectation by 10 spots, which happens to be the most of any team. There's some teams that have underperformed, and that we won't talk about who those are, but we have overperformed by more than any other team. So how have we done it? There's a lot of things that we have done that I think are really clever, really innovative. There's a few that I want to talk about specifically that we have been using that I think are particularly interesting and have a lot of implications for the future as well. So I'm going to talk about new products, one in particular that we have launched over the past few years that has been had a huge impact on our ticket sales business. We borrowed a page from the hotel playbook, and we're utilizing overselling where we can. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we're doing that and what that looks like. And then selling twice. So it's sort of it'll be a different take on the concept of resale in terms of some of the things that the Magic are specifically doing that I think you'll find interesting. So talking about new products, we had a challenge. We have had a challenge even back to the days when our basketball team was making deep playoff runs that I think most NBA teams kind of face. Demand in the early part of the season, let's call it October, November, is softer than the rest of the season. And in Florida, that's particularly true because people have a lot of other options. We're a football state, and football's going on in October and November. The weather's great, so there's a lot of other things you may want to do outside. And the NBA season's pretty long, so you know you have plenty of time to still get out and check out a basketball game later in the season, and so there's not a lot of urgency to do that in the early part of the season. So as we thought about how do we create a situation that will be attractive for people to want to come to our games early in the season, that'll have some urgency to it, so you need to come at that early part, maybe a particular offer's not available, and we hadn't had a lot of success with just the traditional offer, Groupon or some of those things. And so we worked with a company called Experience and created a product called the Fast Break Pass. Really, really cool product. It's mobile only, so you had to use your phone to come into the games. What you would initially have is just that QR code at the top. You didn't have an actual seat assignment. That would get you into the building. And close to tip-off, when you were within a mile of our arena, you could check in and get a randomly assigned seat location. So there's some trade-offs that you had to accept, which was uncertainty about where you could sit, and it's truly random. You could sit in some really great seats in the lower bowl. You could sit in the last row in the upper bowl behind the basket. And that is a very real possibility and often happens, and people get these amazing opportunities to sit in seats that they otherwise wouldn't get or would have typically had to pay hundreds of dollars to get. So that's sort of the dice roll that you're getting with the product, which makes it fun. It's very affordable. So this year, the Fall Pass, which got you every game through the end of November, that would have been 14 games, including 4 preseason. You could have that for $59. So really, really compelling value. Now, typically, a team would be very concerned about offering tickets so discounted if for no other reason than the wrong people would buy it and try to flip it on the secondary market. We don't have that concern because it's a mobile-only product. It's tied to the purchaser. It really can't be resold. So we felt very comfortable that the people that were buying this product would actually be the people that came to the game. We didn't want to assign you your seat too far in advance because we didn't want you to not come if you found out you weren't going to have a good seat. It sort of defeated the purpose. The idea was to get people into our building. And we had a lot of success with this product. We introduced it 3 years ago, and in that first season, 80% of the people that bought it were brand new to our database. We'd never seen them before. They'd never done anything with us. And yet they came and they were Magic fans, which was really interesting for us to see. So it really opened up a new customer segment. What we found since then is that the show rate of this group of customers that buy the Fast Break Pass is really predictable, really stable. So if you think about it, you get these 14 games this season for $59, but no one comes to every single game. They come to some subset, and typically what we see is on any given game, 50 to 60% of Fast Break Pass customers come to a given game. Because we're randomly assigning them seats, we're not necessarily holding something specific for them. We don't have to predict who's going to show up. We just know that 50% up to 60% will show up. So that gives us a lot of flexibility when you start thinking about overselling. We have had some games where we're really tight on inventory, and now you have to start thinking about holding seats to fulfill obligations for the Fast Break Pass. But we know not everyone's going to show up, so we don't want to hold too many seats and miss an opportunity to sell to people who are looking to buy full-price tickets. We don't want to underhold, because if more people show up than we have seat locations for, we're going to have a customer service issue that we have to balance against. But again, as I mentioned, over these past 3 years, we have seen that the show rate is very, very predictable, very stable, and so we have started to employ overselling, where when we run into tight situations on inventory, we only hold the number of seats that we believe we have to hold to meet Fast Break Pass obligations in terms of people actually showing up for seats, and the rest we sell. So if everybody that had a Fast Break Pass showed up for some of these games, you can see we have, in some cases, oversold by more than 1,000 seats. We would be in a world of hurt. So the fun part of it is it creates a bit of a white-knuckle ride on game nights where you're sort of hoping that you're right in terms of what we're holding, and we've definitely sweated it out. The Houston Rockets, I think, was one where we sort of had, we actually had a few more people come than we had seats for, and let's think about the hotels. When you show up to a hotel that has oversold, typically they won't tell you they oversold as long as they got something they can put you in, but oftentimes they'll upgrade you into a better room, and you think they're doing a surprise and delight. The reality is they oversold your category of room, and they don't have one for you. So we did the same thing, and I think it was like 10 people that came to the Rockets game that we didn't have seats for with the Fast Break Pass. Great news for them, they got to sit in a suite for the game. So it worked out really well. And fortunately, we had enough availability in a suite to be able to accommodate it. If we had missed by a lot, it would have hurt. And if we had missed on the other side too, if we had overheld, that's painful as well, because you miss an opportunity to sell more tickets, full price tickets at that, and really optimize your revenue that way. So The other thing that I think is worth pointing out here is these logos. These are the teams, the games where we've oversold. So it's about 20% of the home games we've played so far this season. And I think what's worth pointing out is it's not the Warriors and the Cavs and sort of the obvious, well, yeah, of course, like tons of people want to come to that game and we're overselling. We're actually finding ways to create significant demand for mid to low tier or low demand games, which I think is particularly interesting. The Rockets being a little different category, but even still. So we've seen that as a great opportunity. We actually want to move more and more of our inventory into these types of flexible assignment products where we have a lot more opportunity to sort of pool them in terms of predicting show rates and then having more flexibility to oversell our tickets. So that one's been really exciting for me. Another thing that's really interesting, and this kind of leads us to second sales that we have offered to our season ticket holders for the past few seasons. This is something else that we do with Experience and in partnership with Ticketmaster. We allow our season ticket holders to return their seats. So if you think about a season ticket holder, they are the lion's share of our ticket revenue. Super, super valuable customer segment. Really important for us to keep them every single year. We want them to renew. We want them to come back. 45 games, 41 regular season, 4 preseason is a lot for someone to take in on their own. Almost no season ticket holder comes to every single game. On average, they come to about 30. So what they do with that other 15 typically makes or breaks whether they renew their season tickets. Ticket utilization is the #1 behavioral predictor of renewal. And so we have thought for a long time, how do we make sure that season ticket holders are using their seats, using them in a way that feels valuable to them? Typically, we have encouraged them, historically at least, we have encouraged them to resell their tickets. So if look at your schedule, if you know you can't come to a particular game, post it for resale and try to recoup your investment for that given game. And that has been our only real outlet to sort of help them. But there's a lot of things that are outside of our control, the Magic's control, in terms of ensuring that they're successful. And there's a lot of things that are outside the customer's control in terms of ensuring that they get the value of their seats. And so we have now moved away from that completely and taken full control back. And we've said, look, if you can't come to a game, just give your seats back to us. We will give you a credit in the amount of face value for your seats. We call it Magic Money. It expires at the end of the season. You can't roll it over, but it can be used for anything you can do in our arena. You can use it to upgrade your seats. You can use it to pay for food and beverage or merchandise. You can use it to buy unique experiences, access to our premium areas, our restaurant. You can have our mascot come visit you. You can put a message on the video board. You can do anything, and you can pay for it with Magic Money. So we've given our season ticket holders a way to take something that was not going to be used, it was not sort of valuable for them. They can give it back, and they can make their experience at a future game significantly more valuable for them. They can fully customize it, which helps us reinforce the value for them. So it's really interesting. We've seen some interesting behavior with that. Before this season, about 70% of seats that would get returned to us happened on game day. And when those seats get returned, they go right back into our available inventory and are available for purchase by another customer. So you can buy them on Ticketmaster.com, and we sell quite a bit of those a second time. But you can look at that second sales success chart. The sooner we get the seats, the more likely it is that we'll be able to sell it a second time. When we get them on game day, it's the toughest to sell it again because we've got a really tight window. It could be hours until the game is played, and then we don't have the opportunity to sell them anymore. So you could look at this and say, well, we'd love to have people return them like a week out, but that stops being valuable to the customer. And so we can't really force them and say, hey, if you don't return them 7 days out, we're not going to take them back, because it stops being a benefit to them. 70% were being returned on game day, and we actually thought that most of that was being explained by people trying to resell their seats, and if they weren't successful, they'd give them back. That was actually not the #1 use case. Very few of the people that were returning on game day were actually attempting to resell all the way up until the point that they returned their seats. Oftentimes, it was people that had maybe intended to come to the game and decided last minute that they didn't want to or they couldn't, something came up, whatever it may be, and so they returned them. So we wanted to make sure we preserved that value, but we also wanted to give ourselves the best chance to be successful in selling those seats again. So what we implemented for this season was if you return your seats on game day, you get 50% of face value. Any other time before that, you get 100% of face value. It still happens to be that people return their seats on game day more than any other day. And in those cases, we give them 50% of face value in Magic Money, and the other half, we call it forfeited revenue. It goes into our sort of general ticket revenue budget. It's not associated with the game, but it's in essence forfeited ticket revenue. It doesn't represent a liability for us. And for people who choose to return it earlier than that, we have a better chance at reselling. The 7 days or more one is of particular interest. We would love to get seats sooner if we could, because we have a great chance of reselling them. And as we mentioned with overselling, there's lots of times where we have a need for inventory. We're getting tight, and we recognize that there's certain price codes or sections or levels where we would love to have more inventory and an opportunity to sell it. We dynamically price our tickets, and so in those situations, oftentimes when inventory is getting tight and demand is still pretty high, the prices are going up. So we've got an opportunity to really maximize our ticket revenue in terms of how we sell them. So how do we get seats back earlier? And we can ask our season ticket holders to return them earlier, or we can just give them more Magic Money. So we actually have done that for a couple of games this season, where we've offered, in the case of the Atlanta Hawks game on February 25th, we offered them more 125% of face value if they returned their seats in a 2-day window, which happened to be 8 to 10 days before the game. We did the same thing with the LA Clippers earlier in the season. And what you can see with the chart, the red is for every other game that has been played so far, the percent of tickets on average that are returned in that window as a percentage of overall tickets returned for each of those games compared to what we got for the games where we offered an incentive. We didn't offer the incentive to everybody. We only offered the incentive to season ticket holders who had seats in areas that we wanted the seats back for. So it was very targeted in terms of who we made the offers to. We got the seats back. We gave them 125% of face. We had a better than 80% chance at selling those seats, and I would say it was probably even better than that because these were games that better than 80% is on average. These were games where it was higher demand in areas where we really needed inventory, where we were selling it for a lot more than 125% of their face value. So it's sort of a win-win for us and for the customer, and really successful. And if you start thinking about seats that were returned, we have had a way to take that credit issued column. I would look at that and say that's unused tickets. That would historically be, especially when you think about how much of it is returned on the day of game, that would historically be seats that a season ticket holder just kind of eats, right? And that potentially leads to them questioning whether they should renew. And instead, we have given them a way to use that to enhance their experience for games that they do come to. But in addition, we have found a way to squeeze a little more revenue out of what would have typically been unused seats. If the season ticket holder just chose not to come or use their seats, it wasn't of much use to us either. It would just sit empty. We couldn't do anything with it because they owned it. It's theirs. We can't just assume and start selling it before we know that they're not coming. But you see here, do quite a bit of revenue just from selling the seats a second time. We have that forfeited revenue, so the 50% of face that we keep when you return your seats on game day. And then it turns out that the lion's share of Magic Money is used on seat upgrades. So people put it right back into tickets. And so we're seeing a lift of 14% approximately in that above the credits issued in that unused ticket revenue. So I think that's really interesting. And what's more powerful than that is, as I mentioned, it's the number one behavioral driver of renewal. And if we look at people, our season ticket holders who are returning their seats and spending their Magic Money to enhance their experience, they're 50% more likely to renew. So really, really powerful in terms of driving that end behavior that we want, the more valuable behavior that we want, which is to renew their larger investment with us for the following season. So it was clear to us that Magic Money was a really powerful motivator. And so we started thinking about how could we use it in other ways. So obviously we use it to incentivize people to return their seats earlier if we want them, but how could we do some other things? So we started using Magic Money to encourage people to enter our games with their phone. And so for every 5 games that you come in with your mobile device, you got $20 in Magic Money. Really, really successful program for us. If we look at the growth in mobile entry of our season ticket holders compared to non-season ticket holders where they didn't have this incentive, we looked at sort of the natural increase year over year of that group as kind of the baseline. We increased mobile entry among season ticket holders by I forget the exact amount, but by a significant margin compared to that sort of baseline growth that we're seeing in the marketplace, just natural natural momentum of people wanting to use their devices. So we've clearly started to change behavior there. So then we took it to the next level and said, look, we've got season ticket holders that are potentially at risk. We use a predictive model to identify accounts that we think are unlikely to renew or at risk to not renew based on their behaviors and other factors. And as I mentioned, ticket utilization and attendance is a huge behavioral predictor of that. And so we thought, how about we use Magic Money to try to incentivize some of these folks to come to more games that would raise their attendance level to a threshold where we get more comfortable that they're likely to renew and change behaviors. And so that's the Attend and Win, where we issued challenges to season ticket holders. Come to 4 of the next 5 games or 3 of the next 5 games. We changed it from customer to customer, and you get $200 in Magic Money, $100 in Magic Money, sort of varied depending on the expected value of the customer and what we felt was an appropriate investment to capture their renewal. So really powerful things, and we're starting to do a lot more with this. We're starting to use Magic Money more and more to drive behaviors, and we're using our mobile app to reach out to them. We've got some examples here of push notifications that we sent to those customers as they engaged in our program. So we're using our mobile device. That's part of why we want to encourage people to scan and use their phone. We want them on the app. All the things that I mentioned earlier with returning your seats and purchasing things with Magic Money, all of that happens in our app. So that gives us a direct connection to the customer and gives us a lot of insight into what they find valuable or what they're using to enhance their experience. And it gives us a gateway to communicate with them directly with these examples here of the push notification. So those are some examples of things that we have done over the past several seasons that have played a significant role in us overperforming in ticket sales relative to those other factors that we talked about in terms of team performance, et cetera. We've got about 10 minutes left, so I'm happy to open it up for questions.
You talked about how you can spend your Magic Money on food or something in the stadium.
Yeah.
Do you guys can you order like your drink or something through the app?
Mm-hmm.
You can go to the Magic Money and pay for it?
Yeah, so so if you sit in the lower bowl, we offer in-seat delivery, which is available through our app. We have some of our biggest concession stands around the building have an express line where you can skip the line. It kind of works like Disney Fast Pass. You can skip the line and get your order if you order through the app. So you would actually place your order on the app. And then for season ticket holders that have Magic Money, we offer a way that they can actually just scan their phone at any point of sale in the building, and it will deduct from their Magic Money balance to pay for those items. Oh, right, mobile entry? Yeah. Well, it gives us more insight into the actual customer who's attending. So, if you think about if somebody prints their tickets out and then comes, it's not certain that customer actually came. You could have printed them and handed them to someone else. And so if you come on your device, we know with a lot more certainty that you are there. And with our season ticket holders, we run a lot of different programs where knowing whether they're there or not sort of triggers other things. So, which could be their service person going to visit them, or it could be things within the app. So we actually did this year during our renewal campaign, if someone entered using their phone where we were pretty certain it was the customer, we actually sent them a push notification that said like, hey, great news, you get to come to this special meet and greet tonight, and we gave the ticket for that through the app as well that they would then use to scan when they wanted to go to the event. So it just gives us a little more certainty as to who's in the building.
Do you have any metrics on how much Magic Money is actually abandoned? And is there a thought to, say, apply 25% of the abandoned Magic Money toward the next season's ticket because you know that person's already at risk?
Yes, so we do know about breakage of Magic Money. I think it's still kind of early to where we're not willing to introduce that yet, because I think once we start allowing that, it becomes very difficult to not allow it in subsequent seasons. We're really focused. I think our goal would be that we have no breakage, because if you think about ticket utilization being such a driver of renewal, if people return their seats and they get this value, which is really exciting, it's like, hey, now my seat didn't go to waste. But if you don't spend the Magic Money and enhance your experience, it's kind of like you didn't use your seats anyway. You're just deferring it till later in the season. So we really want you to still use it to enhance your experience. So we're more focused on how do we not have breakage in Magic Money. Yeah, not great planning on their part, so we do see people that'll do a little bit, but the one thing that they will do is like they may return later games in advance of a game. So like we play the Cavs in a week on a Saturday night. They'll return some of those later games to pay for the seat upgrade that they want for the Cavaliers game or to add tickets for the Cavaliers game or something like that. So you do see some of those things where they start thinking like, hey, you know what? I'll just give up April so that I can go for broke in March or whatever it may be. We've definitely made upgrades. And we have times when we have big games where there's a ton of people in the building, it can start to get slow on our Wi-Fi network. We encourage people, if it's slow on Wi-Fi, get off Wi-Fi, and vice versa. It's been okay. I think what we found, so like Fast Break Pass is a great example. What we found in that first season was people were trying to pull up the barcode as they were walking into the building, and you couldn't get Wi-Fi until you were inside our atrium, and the signal wasn't great right outside. And so you'd have these people that were trying to come in, but the barcode wasn't loading, and so they were creating these bottlenecks because they're sort of trying to figure out how do I get in. And what we were having to do was take them inside an area where they were supposed to have already scanned their ticket and sort of stand with them while they got on Wi-Fi, got their barcode to load, and then scanned. So for the following season, we made some investments to take the Wi-Fi all the way out to the street in front of the building so that people could get on Wi-Fi before they ever approached the doors. So there's things like that we've done to make sure that it works a little better for people.
Could you explain the Atlanta game? It's not a premier opponent. You said you wanted to get those tickets back. Why did you want that game? It's not, they don't have a star or anything. And how were you able to sell them for more?
So that game happened to be India night, so it was a huge group night. So we already had really tight inventory. It's a Saturday night, and in February, as the season goes on, a Saturday night is a really strong date, regardless of who we play. So it's all sort of relative, right? Like that Hawks game, I think for us was like a tier 6. So not a particularly expensive game, and in certain price levels where groups had bought a lot of seats and we were tight on inventory and we were starting to raise the price and still seeing that we were selling them pretty well. We started looking at season ticket holders who had seats in those areas and asked them to give them back because there was an opportunity to sell. Not because we were selling like 8,000 single game tickets, but there was clearly an opportunity to keep selling relative to where we were and to sell at a higher price. Because our gate price starting out is already higher than the season ticket price. But as we're dynamically pricing and that's starting to move up for some of those high demand situations, it's even more than 125% of the season ticket price in that example. Yeah, so we have a ton of beacons in the arena. We haven't really gotten to like proximity-based messaging. We've talked about it. I think it's like it's a great thing to talk about. I think our challenge has been, and we were talking about this yesterday. What I've always been concerned about is like the use case that we always hear is like, oh yeah, somebody walks by a concession stand and we can message them like, hey, here's $2 off if you come by a Coke, or Pepsi. But it's not sophisticated enough to know like, what if that person was just going to get in line at the concession stand already, and now we're like giving them an offer for something they're already going to buy. That's some of the stuff we struggle with. We've started to look at like doing proximity-based messaging, like when they exit. So like a single game buyer, they leave, and we start making a recommendation to them of another game they might want to consider coming to or something like that. We haven't implemented that yet.
Can you talk a little bit about the variables that you use to determine what the value of that Magic Money offer would be? So if it's the same, you said it's like a different incentive based on.
Oh yeah, for attend and win. Sure. So we'll look at things like the likelihood of them to renew. So we've got a probability for them to renew, and if we can drive their ticket utilization up to a certain threshold, it'll increase that probability to some higher number. So then you can look at the delta of that expected value relative to what they spend and say, all right, well, if I can get them to come to 3 more games, then I'm going to increase their expected value by $500. And so maybe for them, we'd offer $100 or something like that in terms of what that investment rate could look like. So we sort of look at the value of the account and the impact of changing the behavior.
You've had success upselling the people that bought the Fast Break Pass on either full seasons or full price tickets, or are they just kind of staying in that low price bucket?
I'm so glad you asked that because I didn't mention it. So yes, we're having great success. So there's two things. Number one, if you think about seat upgrades where people, because you don't have to use magic money to pay for a seat upgrade, you could use cash. If you look at the cash that is spent on seat upgrades, Fast Break Pass customers are more than half of that. So they're coming to games and kind of feeling like, hey, I got in here for like $6. I'm playing with house money. I'm going to upgrade my seat because I'm not happy with my upper bowl assignment. So that's been successful. And then when you look at people this season, the season that we're in, that bought season tickets for the first time, the number one source of buyers that upgraded came from Fast Break Pass, more than any other product that we sell. So it was the number one source of prospects for us, which is really encouraging. Now we have some people that, that's just a subset. We have some people that they just stay in that product. They like it a lot. It's cheap. They're willing to sort of roll the dice from game to game. They're okay with getting put in the upper bowl more often than not and things like that. And so that's what works for them. So that's been successful for us. All right, I think we're out of time. So thank you very much for all your time.